All right, we are recording. So thank you and welcome everyone. Today we are hosting the talk How to Organize a Course in Developing Countries by Renee Hartig and Samyra Salek. They are both working in Trend in Africa NGO. This is our second course together with this NGO. Um, Renee is the volunteer program coordinator and Samyra the operations manager. And okay, let's hear your talk, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. So I'm gonna start with the first part, and then Renee will be able to actually give you guys a lot of experience and how things work in the courses that she organized. So I work at Trent since 2015 as a volunteer, and since 2019 as the operational manager. Uh, all our courses are organized in African countries. So we are going to give you guys our view based on the last 12 years of courses that we have been organized.
Samyra, your mute just went on.
Thank you. So there are three parts of that you can divide a course. So the first one will actually be the part where you think about where you want to do this course and why. And I think for me as the operation manager, this is the most important one because this is really where the success will bring multiple courses. So when we talk about the reason, we always tell people that reach us that telling us that they want to organize a course, that the reason it should be something that would actually add to your own work and actually would also add to the location that you're going, because this will actually bring collaborations. And this is the main point when you're talking about academia and when you're talking about life science for us. And this is what we have been doing. The where is extremely important because by choosing the right partner, this will give you confidence and will actually allow you to do multiple courses and understand better and be flexible. So when you're actually looking for a partner, there are multiple ways that you can do that. One is to reach to one charity like us, and if you are into life science, then I think we are the right partner for you, and tell us what type of course would you like to teach, and then we could look in our database and then reach to our alumni. Another way that people also do that is when they actually have an open call and then institutions really apply to be a host. The other part that it's also important on this phase is that you need to understand the infrastructure of the place that you're going, that most of the time it's nothing that you have it at your own institute. So you're going to have to work a lot with improvisation and being flexible and having to deal with difficult situations. Like a lot of other universities that we go, they have power cuts often. Some of them we have a generator for electricity. Most of them we don't. So you have to kind of think about when you have power cuts, what else you can continue doing, or is there something that you can add to the project, like putting solar panels to the university. That might sound a little bit extreme, but it's also not so expensive. And when you're talking about writing grant applications for a course like that, maybe 3,000 to 4,000, it's not something that it's going to change so much your application, but it could be something that you bring in an extra point for the university that you're going. Then the other part, that is a part that Renee is going to talk and give you a lot of more insights, it's during the course. And I think the most interesting point here is that this is where you actually have the chance to be somewhere that could be completely different from your own everyday life. And this is where failures will happen. And it's okay, because this is what will make your next course the best course that you ever done. A lot happened in a course, especially when you think about spending 2 to 3 weeks in a location. And a course can be done by a group of people, or it can be done by 1 or 2 persons. So it's a lot about being flexible and understand that things change all the time. So your plans will change. You just have to adapt to this whole idea. And the third point is really create a community by having follow-ups and do a impact analysis. This is really where you are going to make a difference, because this is where most of the students will be able to actually reach back to you to continue anything that you begin during these courses. Then the impact analysis is going to be good for anyone that you're working with. So it's a charity like us, or if it's your own institute, it's going to give you like the rules of what to do next and how to do it.
Samyra, I'm
Yeah,
not sure, but it could be every time we switch this slide, it automatically mutes you. Let's just keep an eye on that for the
I'm
next
going to
one.
look into that. Thank you. So the first thing that I think Renee will tell you that it's very important to think about it's how you're going to fund the course like that. If you're part of a charity that actually have funds, then I don't think this will be a big problem. But a lot of the charities that we have been working, they work the same way that we do. So we are grant-based charities. So every time we have to organize a course, normally we go to open applications of foundations or institutes or even universities that they have some budget that would allow people to actually teach a course somewhere, or it's what they call a program exchange. It's really about you reading through the lines sometimes. And the two ways that we have done in the last years was really looking online and finding new partners that could just be happy to give us some money or based on an application. A lot of the times you can also find money within your own institute. That was what happened to Renee at Max Planck. And a third option have appeared to us in the last years is that companies, especially if you're going to AI or programming, a lot of the IT companies lately have been interested in donate some money to organize courses like that. The main thing here is if you want to go through this route, you just have to find the right person that would be your contact. Some of the companies, they have open calls on their website. So this is like how much we are putting right now for a course. So when we talk about having an open call for the whole continent, we are looking for an open application, and we are looking to host 20 to 30 students. When we say host, that means that we are covering flights, accommodation, and meals. And this is the only way that a student will be able to actually leave their home institute for 2 or 3 weeks and be able to calmly take the time to learn a new technique or a new skill or a new methodology. Most of the people that we host in the last years, they are PhDs, postdocs, and professors. So they have responsibilities at their own house, so they wouldn't be able to actually have their own institute cover the costs for them. So this is the only way that we actually do any of our courses. The other way, that would be the cheaper way, is that when you know someone that would like to host you, you can go with you could go yourself or another person, and you can teach locally to the students of this specific university. This is also a great way. Renee has lots of experience with that. Actually allows you to create a whole you create a connection, and maybe collaborations can really come up from that. And that will be around 10,000. This will cover your flights, visas, accommodation, and meal. In our course, we say a minimum of 2 weeks, but actually 3 weeks is the ideal time. Depends on what you actually what you want to teach. Then this, I'm going to go through this a little bit fast just because Renee can also give you more insight. But when you're talking about a big course and you want to assemble a team, you need to find people that complement your skills, because everything can happen. And it would be awesome to have people that know how to use internet or set up any computer parts that you need. And it's good to also have someone that it's fast to actually find themselves around the new university, so they would be able to do all the local logistics, and people that also want to do this more than once. It's ideal, but not always is something that you find, because not everybody has 2 weeks of their everyday life that they can take. But a lot of people do find this a very amazing experience that they want to join more than once. Then the development of the course and content. I think for me, on my side, the only part that I would like to highlight is that you should be able to think about cultural aspects. So a lot of the countries are Muslim, and then people take prayer time during the day. And also think about social activities. Most of the applicants that join us, especially the ones for the first time, they were not really able to go to any summer course or conference outside their own countries. So this is really the first time that they're able to find themselves around other researchers from other countries. And the interaction between lecturers and applicants, it's really where the students are able to open themselves and even see other possibilities and ask very interesting questions. Another thing is that during the time that most of our lecturers are there, there's always times for questions during the week. It's very important that you have these sessions so people feel that they are not left behind. And a lot of times, the curriculum that is put it has to go back to basics. So people actually are learning from the beginning what they need. The application process is something very interesting, because most of our courses, when it's an open application, we receive around 350, 500. So the last one was almost 600 applications in total for 30 positions. And from every time someone is hosting us, we need to leave 5 positions for the host institute. So it's actually 25 to 15 positions. So this means that the application is a very intensive task that the whole team will work together, and they are able to go through each application by reading motivational letters. CVs is also something that we ask for, because you really want to find students that want to be there, and they're going to give 110% of themselves during this time. This is also the time that you are able to set your expectations and also rules, because I tend to say that a lot of our all our lecturers are volunteers, and they're taking time from their own vacations to be in different universities. So every person needs to participate 100% of the time, or they are not able to get a certificate. And a certificate means a lot for all of these applicants, because this is where they're going to be able to push their curriculum by saying that they participate in a course like that. Yeah. Renee?
Okay, great. So I'm going to give you an example of an actual course that you can do. I also maybe like a little prelude about me in further depth. I first learned about trend in Africa when I was a graduate student, and I learned about it from one of the co-founders, Tom Batten, who's now at the University of Sussex, but at the time he was in Tübingen, Germany, where I was doing my graduate studies. And I just remember being so excited learning about Trend and the fact that there is an organization which operates to fulfill the aims of capacity building and educational training in Africa. I also recall that at the time I learned about Trend, it wasn't exactly the best time for me to do outreach or coordinate a program, but I did save it on my list of something to do when I was coming to the conclusion of my graduate studies. And that is when I reached out to Trend and I started to basically at first collate contacts. So who could I reach out to? And that kind of touches base to the pre-course bullet point that we have about the contact. Who could be your local partner? Who is going to be a good partner for you? Who is going to be able to engage in a good working relationship? And so at the time, actually, Anna Silbering was the volunteer coordinator, and she had two contacts that she passed along. And one was at the University of Zambia, and that's actually in Lusaka, the capital of Zambia, and the other was in Nairobi at the University of Nairobi. And so I thought, okay, great. I already have these pre-vetted contacts from Trend. They're not strangers. They're people that they have somewhat a working relationship in Trend, but up to that point, there wasn't any courses, with those specific partners. So I did take a little bit of a leap of faith, but one of the first things I did was I had phone calls with those partners to try to assess what are the local needs, what are the needs of the students at their universities. To I already kind of see or have a picture in mind of those participants who will be in your course. And what kept coming up actually, irrespective of if it was in Kenya or Zambia, was that there's a need for soft skill development. Soft skills could be anything from writing an email or tailoring a resume for a specific job application or maybe graduate school application to, actually maybe even presenting your science to other scientists or to the public. So these are the soft skills. And I realized that, okay, there was a need for that. So while I had hard skills in mind, which includes perhaps, if you were to say hard skills could be taught or learned around more theoretical practice and more practical practice, which is hands-on. All in all, they're both different, both types of training, and they're very complementary. And this is something I had in mind because, again, going back to the pre-course, it was yes. Have local partners that you feel comfortable, you can engage in a good working relationship, but also who is your team? Who will you execute this course with? And I had already found 5 of my colleagues, whether they were at my institution or another university. I already knew that we could be a good working team, and I felt that we had synergy amongst our different backgrounds. So we are not all the same background, we are all a life science background. And so based off that, I also wanted to ask, just as I was asking, what are the local needs? I wanted to ask the team, what do you feel comfortable teaching? What is the expertise that you can lend to the next generation? And I could tell that there was some expertise that was very valuable in neuroscience, and that involved a hard skill in neuroscience. So essentially, at the end of the day, we developed a course syllabus hand in hand with our local partners and our team, and we said, okay, we're going to incorporate soft skill components, and we're also going to incorporate some of these more experimental and computational skills in a framework of neuroscience. And so here's an example syllabus you could see up at the top. So some of our soft skills specifically for this course, and this course was a 5-day course. And it basically took place from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we had a 1-hour lunch break. And, in between the morning block and the afternoon block, also, a small 15-minute break here and there. And, I guess when you come into this, it also depends on, do you have prior teaching experience? Maybe, if you are in a classroom in front of 30, 35 students, could you see people are getting tired and then you might want to do a break before lunch or after lunch? So these are all things that you as an educator, as a teacher, you learn through practice and experience. And I find that our students, we're sometimes so forgiving if we pummeled them with a lot of information before lunch. They were still present, eager to learn, but we probed feedback almost every day at the end of the day, just to kind of make sure that if we needed to update the curriculum for the next day based on the feedback we got, that we were flexible enough to do so. And I think that really ties back to a point that Samyra mentioned earlier, and that is kind of to embody a degree of flexibility when you go in for your courses. Yes, you're going to have a schedule, you're going to have a syllabus, you're going to have something you want to stick to, but it's going to be so dynamic when you have all the bodies in the room and all the different personalities. So just remember, we want to have fun. Everybody wants to have fun, teachers and students alike, and to have a little bit of flexibility. With that said, having a course syllabus already a priori or before setting off or going out to the class, this is to be your guide. So we are very happy during these 5 days to kick off on day one with what is a soft skill development, but also ties to the hard skills. And for example, that could be grant writing. So grant writing is definitely of interest when you can imagine yourself in a position where you don't have a lot of funds to execute exciting research projects. And well, where sometimes you get that money, you have to look to different funding agencies or funding bodies. And so this is in essence a soft skill tied to a hard skill, because you have to pitch your project idea. You have to write it down. You have to, formulate that idea in a compelling manner to put yourself in a position to potentially get that research funding. And so this course, it was mostly undergraduates, but we had a few master students. All were actively engaged in a research lab, doing some side research, maybe for credits. And, just thinking, well, what do you want to do with your career? There were a few people who wanted to go on to medical school, which is no surprise in life sciences, but there are a few who really wanted to become researchers. So on day one, we introduced the soft skill development of grant writing. And basically, that entailed some other skills like how to look up relevant literature papers to your research question, how to conduct a literature search. So every day we fostered and we built those skills as we did more theoretical and experimental skill building as well. So essentially by the end of that course, so this was Monday, the start, and then by the end of that course on Friday, we had teams, and it's a little easier to write a mini grant in a team versus oneself. It is not a small undertaking either. But so we had these teams of 3 or 4 students come up in front of the classroom and they pitched their grant proposal to us. It was really exciting to give on the last day of course the students the opportunity to stand in front of class, present what they've been working on all week. It's a mutually rewarding experience. And then throughout the whole week, we also taught them some skills. And I'm gonna go through some specific examples for this one particular course on the next slides. But the premise is really the same for any type of course you want to run. It's really how you're going to build the interactions between the teaching team and the participants, and having a nice syllabus before you even get there is going to be your guide. Just remembering to be a little bit flexible once you actually get to meet the students, see their expertise, and feel their interests. Okay, so in this Monday through Friday course syllabus that I outlined, we essentially had a little bit more of the theoretical portions in the morning. So students would come in around 9 a.m., slowly peter to their seats, maybe, start off a little, casual, a little personal. We also formed amazing relationships with the students, and that also built mutual respect. So they then went on to hear all the theoretical lectures before lunch, and after lunch we did something more hands-on, something a little bit more exciting. And one thing that you could do, and this is really really an important point, is you have to think you might be teaching in an area where there's less resources, there's less capacity, and sometimes less resources means less money for equipment. So what we did a little research into some low cost equipment. This here is a fold scope. It's portable, it's low cost, you could build it yourself. It's actually quite fun to build, and it's a portable wide field light microscope. So microscopes in life science, they could be very common tools. They could help you to basically magnify whether you have a sample on a glass slide or whether you just have a specimen. They could actually help you magnify that. And what's really cool is if you've seen a microscope maybe in the lab or in your universities, is you usually have like a light component that shines up from the bottom, and you have a platform that you put your section, and then you have these lenses that you could see through. And we actually, in lieu of light, could take our cell phones, put on our flashlight, put it under this mini microscope, and then we had the light component, and essentially it has a built-in lens, so you could start viewing, and that was super cool. And on the next slide or two, I actually have some photos taken with this fold scope. And so essentially we the teachers, our teaching team, we assembled one together before the class, so we knew how to do it. And we thought, okay, let's bring the one that we've assembled, it's working, and let's bring a few more that we could assemble with the students in groups. So this was actually very exciting. It's something that takes not too much crazy time, but it takes enough chunk of time where it's a nice teaching and lesson component. So on the next slide, actually, I think I have some photos I could show you of the resolution here. Maybe, Samyra, could you go to the next one? All right. So I'm a neuroscientist. I spend a lot of my time actually looking at neurons. And so we brought some of these slides with us to Zambia, to Kenya. We had a box of slides. And these are something that we had already prepared. And essentially, once those fold scopes, these mini microscopes were prepared, the students could take the sections of brain cells, of neurons, and put them into the fold scope and start visualizing them. And through the lens, we could also position our cell phone cameras to take some photos. So actually, considering it's low cost, under $100, you could actually take high quality images with this simple microscope. And so here's an example. You could see the image on the left. You have a hippocampus, pyramidal neurons. These are long range projection neurons, and they're in a part of the hippocampus, which is an area of the brain that might be, heavily involved in memory and learning processes. And if you look on the right, what you could see is turtle cortical neurons. So this is actually not a mammalian species; it's a different species. It's also a neuron that's located in a cortical area. And just to kind of show the overview or translational components of what a brain cell looks like in different species. And if I may, I would also say, touching upon a capacity building effort does also think about or consider the resources in that particular country. So I for one, I work with primates. I work with humans, I work with monkeys, and sometimes I work with mice. I'd have to say that maybe there are other animal models which might be more accessible broadly throughout the African nations, and that could be like Drosophila, flies, fruit flies, perhaps also some invertebrates. So some animals that actually you could actually find are indigenous to that region. They're more accessible for scientists to study the biological system. And so there's no expectation to say, hey, if we're going to teach you, we need to teach you to look at things in a monkey or human. It's actually it's teaching the principles which are translatable and which could be carried over, adapted, and this becomes relevant for our colleagues who might be using different animal models to study biological systems. Okay. So here's just a really fun picture of our teams building the fold scopes. On the left side, you could see our team member, Mike Hemberger, in the middle with one of our student groups at the University of Zambia. And they're all very intrigued, and they helped us build a couple fold scopes there. And then on the right, we carried on, and we actually, at this point, because we did these two courses back to back, we did first the 5-day course in Zambia. We took a break for the weekend, and then we went ahead and we went to the University of Nairobi. And so that's also a point because our teaching team had already, built up a fold scope before we came to Africa, and we also built up a couple with the students to help them out. So now maybe the teachers are becoming a little bit more expert. So by the time we got to the University of Nairobi, we really, at that point, could instruct the students how to build it without any of the teachers putting Okay. Hold on. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now? Okay. I I
Yes, we
just
can hear
switched.
you.
Is my audio okay? Okay. How much
Yeah,
did you
it is.
miss?
So you're just saying that the teachers were able to do the
Perfect.
microscopes.
Okay, yes. So that was something, because we went to the University of Nairobi after the University of Zambia in this case, the teachers had already, in part with students, built up some, and we built up some before, embarking on our trip. So at that point, we could basically just instruct the students. A lot of the teachers at that point, we were completely hands off. We almost could do it with our eyes closed. And we just instructed the students, and they got more of a hands-on experience. So that was pretty cool. And then another thing you might be thinking in this example scenario is, okay, so the team ran 2 back-to-back courses here. Wow, that sounds like a lot of work. Why would you do that? Well, I have to admit, at that time, I was of the opinion that if you make a long journey somewhere to go teach and be involved at another university, you might want to just make the most use of your time. And for me, that was just to stay longer in Africa. And that was also by splitting my time between 2 or 3 countries. You might now actually say, I like the idea of traveling abroad to teach. And yes, if I have to travel far, I'd also like to spend some time there. So what you could do is say, hey, maybe I'll do a 2-week course, right? Maybe I won't condense all the material into 1 week. I'll do a 2-week course, and then maybe I'll spend a third week after kicking around to try to build the longevity and the long-term aspects of the partnerships that you've worked so hard since being there to establish. This is also a very, very fruitful use of your time. And this is, for example, when we did a course in Nigeria last year, we made sure to spend an extra 4 days just to really communicate, just to really, sit down together in the same room. And just like the phone call before, where we tried to get an assessment of what are the local needs, we did the same thing in person. And sometimes it's so fruitful to have these interactions in person. So all in all, I guess what I'm getting at here is, yes, sometimes to get on a plane and fly some distance, you want to make good use of your time. And you can do a 5-day course. You can also do a 2-week course. You can also do a 3-week course. I think it just depends on your pre-course stage planning, making sure you can just budget for that. And if, perhaps 3 weeks for a course is too much, you could do 2 weeks and 5 days just meetings, something a little bit more relaxed, and it will still be a great use of your time. Okay, so in the 5-day course, we had the fold scopes, which were great, right? Because they were low cost, they were accessible. We could put them in our suitcases, have the students build up. We brought the sections from our labs. They can also learn a little bit of anatomy, biology. So it was sprinkle in some more skills there. And another thing that we brought during this course, and this would be for like a separate post-lunch afternoon practical session, this is hands-on. It's called a spiker box. I mean, it's only a couple $100 US, and it's really, really a simple tool for getting some nice data. And what kind of data? It's electrophysiology data. So this is, in essence, picking up the electrical signals that are relayed by nerve cells. So you can actually do this. Look at nerve cells not in the brain, but you could look at them like on the leg of a locust or an insect or a cockroach. And this is really interesting because, again, you don't need an expensive or, scarce animal model. You could, just maybe go in the field and do some field work. And as long as it fits the ethics regulations, usually there was no issue about some field work. And our local partners did help us coordinate that. So we're very thankful, because essentially it gave us the materials that with the spiker boxes that we brought to start recording some data. And so on the next slide, I could actually show you some traces. So maybe Samyra, skip ahead to the next slide. Yes. Okay. So here on the iPad, it's actually traces of spiking of electrical signals that are in nerve cells. And this was a recording that we did before embarking on our trip to Africa. This was done in the lab in Frankfurt, Germany. And it's also symbolic of another aspect of science, which is replication. So typically, if we were to teach hands-on practical skills, we were just making sure that we could run those lessons ourselves in our home labs. And that's a good positive control that, yes, your setup is working, and yes, you are getting a result, because the last thing you want is to do too much debugging in a foreign country and not feel at ease with getting things set up, especially if you have students in that moment that are waiting for a demonstration. So, this is also a good point. You could you could arrive at your host institution or university 1 or 2 days earlier, and you could already just start setting up. You could, mock up what might be practical, or even, if it's lectures on a slide, test out their AV equipment, just familiarize yourself a little bit. I think 1 or 2 days before kicking off the course, 1 day maybe at minimum. This is also really helpful, just to see the space without it filled with the students. And then the next slide. Yeah, so This is a photo. So basically now we replicated the setup from Frankfurt in Zambia. Now what you could see on the iPad is you don't see the big spikes like we had in Frankfurt. So that was actually due to a voltage sensitivity. So we knew what we should be getting, and then what we did was we actually were able to do this with the students. It was a really great exercise. It's basically an exercise to amplify the gain of your signal in a noisy trace. So this was something we worked through together to show them at the end of the day. Here are the electrical signals that you want to get. Here's what they look like, and look, we could do that here. And that was very exciting. And because these spiker boxes were so low cost, we actually had one of the directors at the Max Planck sponsor the purchasing of a couple, so we can leave one at each university. So if they wanted to continue like the biology labs to teach and maybe consider the spiker box as a lesson, that they could, and we left that behind for them. Okay.
Good. So just to go back to the last point that we see as a full cycle for organizing a course and actually understand what was that you got. When I was talking about communication, this is because it's a way that you can create a community. So these students will be able to talk with each other and ask you guys questions when groups are created. So it can be a WhatsApp group that it's something that most of us are using with our students, a Slack, or even a Microsoft Team tool. This will allow people to actually us or you guys posting any opportunities that you see that the students might be interested. Sometimes papers that they don't have access, we're able to also share on these platforms and just create a, a portal for them to just bring new questions. Online meetings are also good. We recently had one of the coordinators wanting to do a symposium. It was very fun because the symposium was based on online. So he had done 4 courses in the last 6 years. So he had one student from each course present what the work was, how the work was. And I was able to actually tell them where we had other people that were doing something similar, and me as the coordinator of the charity, I was also able to tell them that for some of the consumables or reagents that they were lacking, I was going to be able to help them, because a lot of the problems that we have is based on lack of communication. So this is where we are always trying to improve that. And again, the impact analysis is important because this is where you actually going to see why is your work important. Sometimes, like Renee said, not everything goes how we think, but we might get there and realize that something else is more important at that time. So us, Trend, we want to teach people that will teach others, and we understand by the last years that equipments are important, but then teach people how to use equipment or teach people how to think about building their own equipment is as important, because we want to make sure that when we leave a course, we left a sustainable environment, in the sense that people know how to actually think about how to continue this work. um, then the goals that you find, like the impacts that you find that you were not able to reach, those could be your goals for our next course. We always use the questionnaires that we give to the students on reports and grant applications, and a lot of the people that are actually giving the grants, they are very happy to see pictures and understand what was done and what we want more. This was how we actually got our biggest grant so far. There was 180,000 pounds from the Volkswagen Institute. Was us just writing them an email and saying, this is what we have done with the first money that you gave us. And they enjoyed so much that they actually told us, okay, so write a new proposal, and we're happy to give you guys a grant that would allow you to do a series of courses. So yeah, I think with that, this is what we have been doing. These are our experience based on life science and in African countries. We're happy to answer any questions. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Samyra, Renee. So if anyone has any questions or comments, you can use the chat box or open your microphones as well. Well, it seems everything was super clear. I remind you that tomorrow we will have this talk uploaded in our YouTube channel and also in our website, which is Yo Sigo Publicando. So you can rewatch it and share it from there. Well, I hope we see Samyra and Renee again with another course, and also Trend in Africa, sharing with us some other knowledge.
Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thank you for having us. And if there's anybody who's watching this that is interested in organizing or coordinating a course to, to reach out, trendinafrica.org, you could come visit us online. There you will also be able to connect with us. And we do have some materials that are there to help support those who are interested in organizing courses. Sort of like a checklist and, example forms for after the course. If you want to, see, in the past, what is a feedback form that you could send out to your course participants afterwards. And, if you would like to, review the impact analysis or just get any feedback, you can just reach out to us. I think we're always open to that.
Thank you, Renee. That's very useful, I'm sure. And I hope I see you on the next Trend or Yo Sigo Publicando talk. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.